You can't finish your first draft because you're judging it while you're writing it. I'm AAWatson. I've been writing fiction for 18 years. I've written 500,000 words in the last 18 months alone. 80,000 of those words, I filmed myself writing them and posted on this channel across 65 videos. And in the current book I'm writing, I'm on the 3rd draft. In this video, I'm going to go through 6 mindset shifts that I had to go through to stop getting stuck on first drafts and actually start finishing them. Let's get into it. Lesson 1, your first draft isn't bad. You see the advice everywhere. Write a bad first draft. I used to think this, my first draft is going to be bad, thinking it would help. But when you think about it, it doesn't really make sense. What do you mean write a bad first draft? Bad compared to what? What are we even comparing the first draft to? If you're comparing it to a finished novel that's been edited by 4 different editors and has gone through the whole publishing process and is being sold in bookshops, then yes, the first draft is bad. But why would we ever compare it to that? You wouldn't walk past a house that is being built and only the foundations have been built so far, and you look at it and go, that's a bad house. No, you wouldn't. It's still being built. You wouldn't compare it to the finished product. You can't. It doesn't make sense. It's the same thing with the first draft. The first draft is like the foundations of a house. It's just there to exist, to be stable, something to be built on, not to be judged as the finished product. You don't go, those are bad foundations just because it doesn't look like a completed house. The whole premise is wrong. And that used to make me get so stuck because I would think, I don't want to do a bad first draft. Why can't I just do a good first draft? But why are we putting that judgment on the first draft? It really doesn't make sense. We have to reframe it as this is just a step in the building process of the book. That is it. Lesson 2, there are 3 stages of writing a book. They are get it down, make it work, polish it up. It doesn't matter if you do 3 drafts or 30 drafts. Each draft is going to have the job of one of these stages. And the important thing is you have to decide before you start the draft on which stage this draft is going to be in. And the first draft is always going to be in the first stage, which is get it down. That is your only goal, to get the ideas in your mind down onto the page. For example, in the book that I'm currently writing now, which I filmed the whole first draft process, you can see it, that it's on my channel. It's 65 videos of me literally writing on camera and explaining my process. So far, I'm on draft 3. First draft was just about getting it down. The second draft, what I did is I realized that the second half of my draft didn't really work. It wasn't as good as the first half. So that became the make it work. So I redid the second half. And now on the 3rd draft, it's still making it work. I'm going back through and making sure every element of the story fits together, but it's still making it work. So I've had 1 draft of get it down and 2 drafts of make it work, but all of them fit in one of these 3 stages, and the first draft is always get it down. Once you start thinking in that way, you know you are succeeding with the first draft if you are writing it. That's it. Lesson 3 is to treat your first draft like your best friend wrote it. I want you to imagine a scenario. Your best friend is a writer and they come to you with their first draft. They say, hey, I just wrote this first draft. It's not finished yet. I'm still going to be working on it, but I'm really happy I finished the first draft. Here, can you read it? And you're like, of course I'll read it. And you read it and there are typos and it seems like they made up some words and not all the elements of the plot make sense, and there are just some really weird things and the grammar is wrong and you see all sorts of mistakes. What would you say to them? Would you say to them, this is ridiculous, this is rubbish, don't ever write again? No, of course not. You would realize it's a first draft and they're just working it out, and you say, I loved this part. You might laugh at some of the silly mistakes. You'll be like, yeah, this is really promising. Keep working. You'd be encouraging. You'd want them to keep working on it, keep making it better. The issue is that so many writers speak to themselves, not like how they would speak to their best friend, but how they would speak to their worst enemy. They talk down to themselves. They think, this scene doesn't make sense. I should quit. I should never write again. I'm horrible. Why do I even do this? As soon as that starts to happen in your mind, think, what would I say if this was my best friend? You can do this. It's just the first draft. It's not over yet. You don't have to be perfect from the beginning. That's how you should speak to yourself. And that reframe, fortunately, I discovered this because I used to be a tennis player, and the same thing would happen on the tennis court when you're playing badly or when you're making mistakes. And if you start to speak badly to yourself, then you'll just start playing worse. You can acknowledge your mistakes without attaching a judgment to it. You can say, I wrote this scene that doesn't make sense. The second part that makes it bad is, I wrote this scene that doesn't make sense, therefore I'm a bad writer. No, you wrote this scene that doesn't make sense. Great. You'll rewrite it on the second draft. Simple as that. No judgment, no emotion has to come into it. This reframing helped me a lot, because when you put so much negativity onto something that you say that you enjoy, it becomes really hard to do, and you get stuck and you feel like you don't even want to do it, and you wonder why you're doing it, and all these thoughts coming to your head that really stop you from moving forward. So as soon as these bad thoughts start to happen, just reframe it. What if this was my best friend? Speak to yourself like you would speak to them. Lesson 4, the best writing advice is to just write. This, I feel like, has been repeated so much that it's become a cliche at this point, and newer writers especially just dismiss it like, yeah, obviously write to get better. But I'm going to give you an example of how this really hit home for me, because I also used to dismiss this as, yeah, I'm writing, obviously, but when you realize this and what it actually means, it really changes how you think about the writing process. So for a long time, I really couldn't wrap my head around how to handle time passing within books. Not even pure time skips where it can just be really hard time skip, like later that day, 6 weeks later, etc. But handling when someone is actively doing something and time is passing, but you have to give a snapshot of what they're doing across that time. I used to really struggle with that. A good example is when I used to write travel scenes in my stories, I would really struggle because in the idea that I had, something might happen on day 3, on day 7, on day 12, and then 6 things might happen on day 13. I really struggled with that kind of writing. So what did I do? I read articles, I read books that did it, listened to podcasts, to YouTube videos. I looked up all the information out there. Meanwhile, I was avoiding it in my stories. I was literally planning where everything either happened in one go, where I didn't need to skip time, or it was really obvious and really far apart to the point that I could just make it a hard, like 3 years later. Meanwhile, I was absorbing lots of information, but one day I had a really good idea for a story, and it involved what I'm talking about, time passing and things happening across time. And I had all these ideas in my head of how to do it, but I'd never tried it because I still didn't feel confident in doing it. But I really liked the story idea, and I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna try it out and see what happens. I didn't even use any of the techniques that I'd learned about. I just wrote it in a way that I thought felt best, and it worked. And then I realized years, and I mean years, of writing stories where I avoided passing time, and I could have completely solved that, and my stories probably would have been much better so much earlier if I had just actually stopped avoiding the issue and just wrote. And this is not the only time that this has happened to me. It's happened to me more than once, because apparently I need to make the same mistake multiple times before I learn the lesson. Hopefully I have learned the lesson and I don't repeat this, but it is so important. You will learn more from writing 10,000 words than you will from watching 100 videos on writing craft. You just will. Just write and you will figure it out after. Lesson 5, you can't plan your way to great characters. So earlier on in my writing journey, I wanted to learn how to write really good characters. I would research on the internet, and a lot of people, I don't even know if they were writers at this point, people who are giving writing advice would say, oh yes, you have to fill out a character profile before you write. All the demographics to what they like for breakfast, lunch, dinner, their family and extended family and extended family and their whole ancestry and what they keep in their pockets. That's such a, I don't know. I don't know why that is such a big one. Everyone says, or at least they used to say, I don't know anymore, know what the character would keep in their pockets or in their bag on a day-to-day basis. I would download templates of these multi-page, 10, 12-page character profiles, and fill them all out. And I'd think, oh, this is a great character. I know everything there is to know about this character. Then I would come to write and I'd realize that everything that I put in that character profile had absolutely nothing to do with the character that was emerging on page. All that work, all that procrastination, all that time of thinking I was being productive and not writing was a complete waste. I am an advocate for planning the plot, and obviously there are character elements that are involved in the plot that you can plan, but to really make a great character you have to write it. I was thinking really hard how to put this into words because it's mostly intuition, and I think I have done a good job. So let's say you are a planner like me, you plot. When you're writing, most times you will feel something pull towards you. There will be something maybe in your plan that a character is meant to do, and there's just a small thought in your mind that says, the character wouldn't do this. The character would do this instead, or the character would feel this way. That is you writing your way to a great character. And I would encourage you to follow that, even if it goes away from the plan that you've laid out or your ideas for where the story was going. Only through writing, not through a profile, but through writing that you really get to know your characters. There is a series that I have been working on for 10 years at this point, and the main characters of that series, I know them so well that I can literally say everything about them off the top of my head, including what they would have in their pockets. But I didn't make the profiles first. Well, actually, I did at the time, but that profile has nothing to do with how the characters are in the stories I use them in today. The way I developed it was writing stories with them and developing, and then when I discovered something from the writing, then I put it in my notes about them. And that's the process of how you create characters through writing. When a character is pulling you to a certain course of action, just do it. If it doesn't work later, you can change it, that's fine. But just get it out. That is the point. Lesson 6, don't filter your ideas. Writers, including myself, and I got over it fairly recently in my writing journey, writers tend to filter themselves in their first drafts, judge their ideas too harshly. And it normally comes from two places. Either you think of a scene and at first you get a bit excited and you think, oh, that would be cool. And then there's a voice in your head that says, no, that's silly. That's a bad idea. Why would you put that? That goes against everything you've planned, all the ideas you have. No, don't do it. That comes from you judging yourself. The second place that comes from is from your perceived judgment from others. You'll want to write a scene and you'll think, wait a second, but what if my parents read this? Or what if my friends? What if my partner? What if my children? Whoever it is, your great uncle, there is a voice that's in the back of your head, and normally it's one person, maybe two people. You might perceive it as people, but if you really think, who am I worried about judging my writing? It's normally one or two people that you think if they read this, you would feel some kind of embarrassment, some kind of shame. They would judge you in a certain way. I would say to that in general that you're writing for you first and foremost, so write for you. But apart from that, specifically for the first draft, the job of the first draft, as I've said many times in this video, is to get it down, to translate your ideas from your mind to the page. So if you have some weird idea or some brutal or wacky or whatever it is, just write it. First of all, no one will read your first draft if you don't want them to. I highly doubt someone is gonna sneak into your house, steal your password, log into your computer at night, open the document and read your first draft and then laugh or whatever. I highly doubt that's gonna happen. Not against the laws of physics, but I highly doubt it. But true creativity is just trying things, experimenting things, seeing if you can redo things, and then accidentally coming out with something that's new and innovative. That is literally what creativity is. If you have some weird time travel shenanigans that happens only once in the book and then is never spoken about again, just put it in. It's the first draft. That's what the first draft is there for. You can make it work later on the following drafts. On the first draft, just get it down. Don't filter your ideas, don't filter your thoughts. And there you have it. Those are the 6 lessons that really helped me to just get unstuck on my first drafts. Honestly, it's just about getting out of your own way. That is all it is. In the writing community, we put a lot of emphasis on the first draft, but it's simultaneously important because it's a step in the process, but it's just to get the ideas down on the page. A lot of the work goes on afterwards. And once you do start finishing your first drafts, you'll realize that the world of writing really opens up to you, because that's truly when the best ideas come. It's after the first draft. But I see it all the time where the first draft just keeps most people who want to write wonderful stories stuck. And I hope that this video can help you get unstuck. AAWatson out.